Thank you for all being here today. This is a sacred ceremony. The World Economic Forum estimates that more than 100 billion people have lived, human beings. Where those people lived, how they lived, what they did, who they loved, how they passed away, it's all gone. And sadly, this is a fate most of us will face. 5 generations from now, it is unlikely that many of us will be remembered, certainly not a passing politician. And that's why this ceremony, this time, this place is sacred. It's dedicated to holding these heroes safe from that oblivion, from not being remembered. It is to keep their names and lives and their achievements, their service, ever before us. So generations to come will know that they lived and that they did something worth remembering, and perhaps to set an example to which the rest of us might aspire, an example of honor, duty, integrity. The thing that is worth remembering from each of their lives is that each of them defended our society, its values, against those who seek to kill and steal and destroy. Everything we have here today is because they safeguarded these things with their lives and passed them down to us. And today, we're here to renew our long promise: you will not be forgotten. And we carve that promise in stone, as you can see in this great circle of heroes. Each year, sadly, we add more names to this honor roll and do it with heavy hearts. This year, we add 15 new ones. 8 of these officers and deputies fell since 2020 and the beginning of the pandemic. We're also adding 7 who fell in the last century but were not previously recognized. The 8 recent losses are Akron Police Officer Kenneth C. Jones, Akron Police Officer Edward L. Stewart, Butler County Deputy Robert C. Mills, Lawrence Township Officer Sean E. Vandenberg, Medina County Drug Task Force Agent John D. Staybrook, Bluffton Police Officer Dominic M. Francis, Clark County Deputy Matthew E. Yates, and Wyandotte County Deputy Daniel J. Kinn. The additions from the last century are Perry County Deputy Herbert Minshall and 6 Dayton police officers, Troy E. Sine, Clement L. Francis, Emerson Glotfelter, Vinton E. Harsh, Edward M. Hennessy, and Lawrence R. Graham. Despite the many decades that separate these 2 lists of heroes, there's something that many of them have in common. 10 of them died of illnesses that they contracted in the line of duty. 6 of last century's officers that we're honoring today died of the Spanish flu, contracted in the course of their duty between 1918 and 1920. 4 of the contemporary fallen were struck down by COVID-19, again, that they had contracted on the job. And it's worth remembering that when many of the rest of us got to work remotely from home, when other people were being subsidized to get through the pandemic, they showed up. No vaccine, no protection, no special benefits, just another day on the job, knowing the risks that they were facing. It's every bit as much of a death in the line of duty as those whose lives were taken by a car or by a criminal's gun. It's a reminder that officers face more dangers than simple traffic and criminals. And unlike criminals and road hazards, viruses are silent and invisible, and they strike from within. The promise we make to our fallen officers to keep their memories alive is not only for them. We do it for the officers and deputies who stand and serve now. It includes the officers and deputies we see all around us here today, those who are watching on social media, and it includes those who couldn't attend this ceremony because they stayed behind to guard their communities all across Ohio. We do this so that all of them will know how much we value them, their mission, and their courage. This message to the living generation of law enforcement officers is more important now than ever, because for the last few years we have seen an unprecedented level of attack against police, demonizing them, denigrating them. People with a toxic political agenda have portrayed law enforcement officers not as the protectors of our communities, but as the enemies of our communities, not as the guardians of safety and peace, but as perpetrators of hate and violence, not as defenders of the defenseless, but as thugs targeting and preying on innocent people. Ladies and gentlemen, these are lies. They're vicious lies. And some of them are sometimes spoken in high places. Instead of giving the benefit of the doubt to the honorable officers involved in controversial tragedies, they often throw these officers to the mob before the facts are even determined. Without support, some officers have made a pretty rational decision to avoid situations that might make them the scapegoat in the next politician's press conference. The result has been predictable. Crime, which had been falling for a generation, is on the rise again, skyrocketing in some of our cities. As crime goes up, so did police retirements and transfers. Many officers decided it would be better to move to a less hostile jurisdiction or to leave law enforcement altogether. To those officers who have left the ranks, I respect your decision. It's hard to blame you. No one who has assumed the role of society's defender should ever be subject to the abuse law enforcement officers have suffered. To those officers who have continued to report for duty throughout this dark hour, I say thank you from the bottom of my heart on behalf of nearly 12 million Ohioans who rely on you. I say thank you. Our society would not last long without you. And despite all the hate that has been directed at police for the last few years, the mission still remains. Just look at the families, the children that are gathered here today. Protecting them from harm is and always will be our mission. It's a noble and indispensable calling. Like soldiers who protect us from enemies outside our borders, law enforcement officers frequently have to protect us from enemies from within, from evil. In a few minutes, we're going to witness a solemn ritual, the riderless horse. No one's quite sure where or when this tradition began, but we know in distant times, chieftains were often buried with their favorite steed so that they could ride together into the afterlife. At some point, a tradition evolved to lead a horse without a rider, an empty saddle, emphasizing the loss of someone valued someone important to the community. This tradition has now been deployed for hundreds of years at funerals of military officers, other leaders, presidents of the United States. The riderless horse is a poignant, painful, powerful symbol of what we lose when an officer is fallen. The empty saddle, of course, emphasizes their absence and underlines the void that remains. That void is felt keenly by our communities, by the officers, brothers, and sisters in uniform, and most acutely by that officer's family. Just as we vow today, renew our vow today, to never forget these officers, we also vow never to forget the price that all you family members have paid since you last watched your loved ones walk out that door. The price you have paid is a price that you have paid on behalf of all of the rest of us, and we can never repay it. We are forever debtors to you. God bless you all. But even as the riderless horse reminds us of what we have lost, I think it also contains a promise and a challenge, because we know that for the past 2 centuries, in each generation, men and women have continued to pin on the badge and to protect the people of Ohio. Whenever one of them fell, another one stepped forward to fill the gap. Across generations, the baton of courage has passed from one hand to the next, right down to our present day. The horse is also a symbol of power, of authority, of strength to do a duty. It's hard to imagine the new sheriff in town showing up on foot. That image is the sheriff coming in on horseback, tall, above the crowd, clear visibility, strong to do a duty. There's always been someone who's looked upon the riderless horse and heard the call to step up in the stirrup, to swing into the saddle. They take the reins and once again give that horse, that authority, purpose, and direction. They know that sitting atop a horse is a dangerous place to be, and they know it can make them a target, but they do it anyway because they know someone has to. Your loved ones knew that somebody had to do the job. All of these know that somebody has to do the job. If the day ever comes that no one climbs back into the saddle of that riderless horse, that is the day that civilization itself will end, and chaos and crime and evil will control our streets. That's why we come here each day, each year, and honor those who climbed into the saddle, fully accepting the risks. And this is why, out of the billions and billions of lives that have been lived and lost in the mists of time, we remember these heroes and carve their names into eternal stone. Thank you for being here to honor them. We will always remember.